this new guard passing concept I've been using has completely transformed how I understand guard passing. So I wanted to share the basic principles of it and then go through a few different ways that you guys can use this and add it to your game. Before I get into the specifics of it, I wanted to talk about the importance of understanding using principles for getting good at jiu-jitsu. In my opinion, there's two main ways to learn. One is system-based learning, memorizing patterns and sequences from common positions that you can repeat all the time. Systems work best when you're dealing with positions that have limited variables. For example, if you're trying to finish an arm bar from mount, if you start in the arm bar already, there's only so many ways your opponent can defend. They could like grab their fingers, they could wrap their arms, but you could probably break that down into 4 or 5 main steps and really understand it and have kind of an if-then approach to finishing from there. But when you're dealing with problems that are much larger, like passing the open guard as a whole, or defending your open guard, there's literally millions of possible variations of hip angles, leg positionings, arm positionings, and grips. So in these kind of situations, having a broad principle can help save you a lot of time and understanding or making quick decisions on what to do. In reality, I use both systems and principles, but this video is going to be heavily focused on a principle first. And then once you guys understand the principle, I'm going to show you how you can use this in multiple specific scenarios. So first off, I want to talk about two really powerful passing principles I've referred a lot to before that I still think are extremely useful, but are actually less important than the one I'm going to show you. The first one is the idea of elbow-knee connection. Elbow-knee connection is extremely important from a guard defense perspective because for your opponent to ever pass your guard, they need to get inside your elbow-knee space. If my elbow and knee is connected, they can never fully establish the position. I can always push them off and find a way back to my open guard. So they ultimately have to take that away. And this is important to understand both for the passer and the guard player because you understand the core idea of what you're trying to accomplish. Another major one is the idea of hip angle, which is if my opponent's hips are facing the opposite direction that I'm going towards, then in some sense their arms and their legs are facing the wrong direction, making it much more difficult for them to defend my guard passes. These are both incredibly powerful principles to use, and I still use them all the time, but they are secondary to the most important principle, which I'm going to talk about now. This principle is based off of an idea that I recently did a video with Espen Mathisen on, which is the idea that if one of my feet is in between my opponent's chest and my chest, I can always get my guard back. This is true in very extreme scenarios. So if we take the example of elbow-knee space being a major idea to finish the guard pass, but still, even if my elbow-knee space is completely open, if one of my feet, my outside leg, comes in between my chest and his chest, I'll still be able to find a way back out to my open guard. Also true is if I'm facing the wrong direction, of course I don't want to be faced that way, but if you have the mobility and your foot can get in between, you can again use this to recompose in many different ways. So this seems a bit obvious, but when you really understand it, it makes the priority of how you pass very different. If you try to overemphasize opening the elbow-knee space at the expense of allowing a foot to come in, you're going to allow your opponent to get their guard back. If you try to turn the hip over but you neglect blocking the feet, they're going to get their guard back. So making deflecting the feet as your #1 priority when passing the guard will make subtle but huge differences in the way you do every guard pass. This connects into two other really critical core principles to understand, which is ultimately if I'm trying to pass, there's two main ways I'm going to control the pin. One is a chest-to-chest connection, which in my opinion is the most dominant and allows for upper body submissions. An additional point with chest-to-chest connection is once I have connected my chest with their chest, they can by definition never get their foot in between my chest and their chest because it is connected. So that is the end point that you're trying to establish. So in the meantime of going from passing to getting to chest-to-chest connection, my job is to deflect and deny the feet from getting in between my chest and their chest until I can fully consolidate. Another variation of this is what I call hip to chest connection. And so I often use this when I'm doing things like knee cuts or reverse leg drags, but it is true that if I have my hips or my low torso connected to their chest, they still cannot get their foot in between my chest and their chest because I always have a connection point on the chest. These are two really critical concepts to understand that as we go into the specific application of these principles, you're going to see how it shifts your ability and the small details that you use on every guard pass. So the first guard pass that we're going to look at using this with is what I'm going to vaguely refer to as a Toreando, but it's a bit more broad than that. The Toreando, classically, we think of controlling the pants and pushing our opponent's leg to the side and running around, but we're first going to focus on doing this by actually controlling our opponent's feet because I think it's going to distill the principle better. And as we understand that, then we're going to talk about doing it with the pant legs, and then we're going to go into using this in multiple different ways that I think anyone can apply to their game, no matter what's your body type, no matter whether you do gi or no gi, no matter what guard passes you like to use. Also, guys, remember, if you're really enjoying this format of video, the best way you can help support the channel is to leave a comment and give me your feedback on how you're enjoying these videos or what I can do to make them better. Also, I wanted to mention I'm going to be posting more new content on my second channel, John Thomas BJJ Plus. Be sure to subscribe there. On that channel, I'm going to do a lot more specific niche type content, whereas on this main channel, I'm going to focus on these big, broad overview type videos. So we're going to start off by focusing on controlling the ankles first, because you can use it gi, no gi, and it kind of fundamentally starts with the concept of blocking the feet for base understanding. And when we start grabbing the pants, it gets a bit more complicated because their feet can move around and stuff. So starting with the ankles is a great start, and then we'll move to the pants. So I'm going to control both ankles here. And the basic idea is I'm just blocking the ankles. I'm going to slowly start walking around. And notice because I'm blocking the ankles, the feet can't move. So as she tries to bring the feet in between me and her, it's very difficult to get in. And now I can come in towards this like north-south position from here, and I can start to dig in to finish here. As I walk around, if I'm blocking this, she can never fully get that in. So now as I walk around, I can start looking for where the entrance for the pass will be. So from here, it'll depend on how they move. For example, if she's turned in a lot like this, it might be easier to go all the way around this side, and now I can finish on this side. But again, she could never fully get her foot into position, right? If I do it again, and I'm on this side, as I walk around, maybe what she does is she starts to open this foot to the floor, because she try to put your feet in the bicep. So she can't get the feet in, so they start overcompensating, kicking the leg, and that'll open up a gap to drop down here into side control. One of my favorite ways to finish here is as I'm like this, I start to get up here like this, is she wants to get the feet in and I'm blocking. If I rush to go to the pants too soon or do the wrong thing at the wrong time, the feet will come in, especially if they're flexible. So what I like to do is I block the feet and I get this really wide stance because it allows me to hinge at the hip and get my upper body close. Again, the closer my upper body is, the harder it is for her foot to get in. If my legs are really narrow like this, it can be very hard to get close with the upper body and the feet can work. So I come around into this position here, and once I get here, I'm gonna make a quick switch and start going into the ribs like this. So as she tries to bring the feet overhead here like this, you see I kind of crowd out and block. By understanding the concept of blocking the foot, I can kind of intuitively make that hard. For example, if I didn't understand that, I might think the goal is to do this, but if her foot comes all the way over my back, she gets all the way out here, right? But by understanding this, they're going to be bringing their legs up to try to bring it in. So I'm blocking with my arms. See how she has this arm? She's going to be using this to try to realign to one side. And if they go all the way to one side enough, it's easier for them to get their foot in. So when I'm doing this drill, realistically, bring the legs up, as they try to go one side, you see I'm using my arms like this to help steer them. I want to keep them parallel to me in this straight positioning like this. And I can slowly dig in and finish the pass. So just emphasizing the point here a little bit more, again, the main goal is to block the feet. So as I come around, a lot of people focus on disconnecting the elbow knee or turning the hip, and those are super useful. But again, if this elbow knee is completely open and she can get that foot over, she can still get her guard back, right? If she's facing the completely wrong way and this foot gets in, they're still gonna get their guard back. But conversely, if I'm controlling the feet and I'm here really tight, like this, even if the elbow knee is completely tight, she still feels in trouble because my weight is coming down and the feet cannot come in. Even if they're turned all the way into me and I'm blocked here, she still cannot get the feet in, and eventually it's going to turn into a pass, and if she turns away, I could even come up and take the back. So another really powerful grip to use when you're not grabbing the pants is instead of double gripping the ankles, I'm going to do a grip on the top of the knee on the inside leg.
This helps for a couple reasons. The thing with this is I can block the foot, but sometimes when I go for the knee, either if they're not so tight, I can open this elbow knee space, which will allow me to close in chest to chest quick, which blocks them from getting the foot in. But another huge component of it is often people are gonna keep this knee really tight. And if that knee's tight, this actually works like a steering wheel to spin them. And that allows me to create more of this above angle. And anytime I can create this above angle, it's much harder for them to bring their foot in. They have a lot further to go. When I'm directly on the side, her foot can try to come into my bicep. But as I get above, it just has a lot further to go. And now I can start to dig in and find ways to finish from here. Another common pattern that'll happen here is as I try to walk around, they try to block my shin with their hand so that they can follow me with their hand. So what I do is often as she's gonna reach for that, I'm gonna high step over so she misses it. This allows me to keep the angle blocking the feet, and I can dig in and pass to the other side or come into north-south.
So now that we understand the basics of doing this pass, controlling the ankles or the knees, we're going to talk about doing it controlling the pant legs. The difficulty with controlling the pant legs is that we don't control the direction of our opponent's foot. They can more easily loop their leg or put their foot in our bicep. However, the benefit is that we gain different movements that we couldn't do with just the ankle. When we control the pants, we can do things to surprise our opponent, like quickly pull on the pants to pull the foot out of the position to allow us to run around, or to quickly drive their hip to the other side, or snap open their elbow knee space. In addition, when you finish the pass, it's harder for your opponent to turn away because controlling the pants blocks them from turning away and can make it harder for them to try to wrestle up.
So the pants are a little bit different because when I control the pants, I can't as easily control the direction of their foot. Their feet can move around a lot more freely. But when I have the pants, the benefit with the pants is you can do a lot more things with pushes and pulls on the leg, and that allows me to create different angles. So one way I like to use the pants is if their knees are really tight, I can actually spin them like a top, like this, and I create this kind of north-south position again. And anytime I can get this like above position, it's much further for them to try to bring their feet in between me and them because I'm pressing down on the legs. If I'm at this side angle, even if I'm pressing, sometimes this foot can come over, right? So a lot of times what I'm doing when I have the pants here is I'm trying to create that angle like this. You see, and again, I get that wide stance and get low, and now as she tries to bring her feet in, it's much harder. And you see how I'm naturally, as she tries to bring that in, I'm getting low to block it out of position. If I had stayed up here, it would have come in, right? So my objective when I get around is to create these kind of positions here, dig, and I can come in and pass. Another cool concept with this is as I'm moving, let's say she starts to put this foot up towards my bicep. Again, it's in between me and her. But what I can do is I can pull it out of the way. So that's one of the benefits of the pants you get. If I have an ankle and they're here, it's very hard to do these kind of quick snaps and pushes and pulls. So I can kind of be here moving around, threaten the roll, and I pull out. And you see again, it doesn't matter whether she's facing me, whether she's turned away, the elbow knee tight. As long as I have the feet out, try to bring her feet back in, she can't bring the feet in. She's stuck. So here I'm either gonna get the pass, and if she turns all the way away, she's going to expose the back. So keep turning to it. Yeah, see, she exposes the back, and now I'm going chest to back and focusing on back control. Another really powerful concept that you can use when you have the pant legs, it's harder with the knee or the ankle, is the idea of snapping the leg open. So again, if their knee is really tight, it's very hard to go to side. I often go more north-south threats. But when I have the pants, I can feel their tension. So if I feel some tension in the leg when they push, if I snap that open, this gap is gonna open. Now the trick here is I don't actually keep holding because it gives them that nice frame with their arm on my shoulder to defend. So what I do is if I feel the tension, when I snap it, it's gonna open. You see I release and I come in chest to chest to finish to side control, right? So when I'm here, I have to feel if their knee's really tight, I might spin them like a top. If I feel like an opening here like this, I snap open and I can come in there. Another way people will commonly use this is as you're passing, you can switch this here to this cross grip, or you could even start with a cross grip initially. A lot of people use this with like a mad dog grip, like here, grabbing the lapel. But either way, you ended up switching to more of these like reverse Toreando grips. So when I'm here, my opponent will be trying to bring their legs in and I'm fighting here. And in this sense, it's almost easier because my arms are straight on like this. Whereas if you come from a classic Toreando, your arms are crossed a bit. So you can kind of get this position. So she's trying to bring her feet in and stuff. I'm kind of fighting and starting to learn to dig and go in from here. The benefit with the Toreandos is I start with my arms straight, so I can be a bit more explosive here like this, but then I end with these more cross positions. The reality is you can use both. Personally, I like the classic grips because I can mix it with knee cuts a little bit easier, but it's very effective with the cross arms. Another powerful setup I like to use with this is I'll force a knee shield, which makes this leg out of play. When I'm here like this and the shield is stuck, she has it, but she can't get the foot back in. So from here, I can grab the knee or the bottom pant leg, and I'm quickly gonna step up and back out and then make a big step around here. Notice this leg positioning here. This foot can't come in, and because my arm is here, this is blocked out of the way, so she can't get the foot in. Often from here, she'll try to turn back into me, and I can dig and turn this into north-south or finish in side control.
So now I want to talk about one of the most powerful guard passing tools, which is the over the head or over the back grip for passing the guard. Versus some of the most difficult guards, this is the best way to pass. By grabbing over the head or over the back, you make it really difficult for your opponent to realign back to the center, and it allows you to keep them trapped in a north-south position that you can dig in and eventually finish passing the guard.
Often when you try to pass, people will frame under shoulder like this, and it makes it hard to get that above position. Another reason is maybe someone's trying to grab my sleeve, so I want to go with just one arm, right? And what happens is I want to get this above position. But of course, as I go up here, they'll often try to follow back like that, exactly, right? So by catching the head here, what I do is I make it hard by pressing the head this way. I make it hard for them to realign. Their body is stuck, right? They can bring their leg up a little bit. I'll show how to deal with that in a second, but they can't realign their body because they got the head. I can also do it by going over the back. So I can do like a half spin and catch here. And when I pull on this, I'm pulling them to this more north-south position. For this far leg here, what happens is as I go around, I get this position. You see, I try to close this like shin knee space here like this, right? So as I come around, she'll try to bring this leg up here, and I want to close this space out, right? So what happens is as I go here, you see I get this low and I block it out. Even if I'm here and she can bring the foot in because she's flexible, she's going to get back. So what I do is I create that motion there, and now I've blocked it out. I grab that over the back grip, and now she can't get in. I can dig and finish the pass. Another great way to use this is with one arm. So sometimes I don't make a grip with this, and I'm just gonna try to spin them real quick. I pull and I hop up to this north-south position. From this angle, it's very hard for them to get their foot in, and I can either dig in on the pass, or sometimes they turn this way and it exposes going for a stack or diving to the back. So these Toreando sequences are a great way to use this tool, but another amazing way to do it is in a knee cut pass. The knee cut pass is often a quick way to close the chest or hip distance, because while you're blocking the feet and your opponent expects you to run around, you can take more of a straight line connecting the chest. And if you can connect the chest immediately, then it's impossible for them to set their foot back in between you and them and defend the guard pass. So there's two main types of knee cut I focus on. One is upper body dominant, where I connect with my shoulder or my chest, and the other is lower body dominant, where I connect with my hip. We're gonna start with this shoulder first. So in this case, what happens is we're approaching the guard, and a lot of times if a person has a flexible guard, they'll keep their legs really wide like this, and it makes, if they like rotate their legs, they have a bigger cone of retention. So as I'm clearing this, this can come over, and it's a bit harder to deal with. But the weakness of this is that often it'll open up a gap to go for a knee cut. So what I'm gonna look to do is I can control the ankles first if I want. I can have the pant legs so they don't know what I'm gonna do. And when I see an opening, I'm gonna switch and shoot in here, and I wanna close my shoulder to their sternum as fast as possible, and I'm gonna cut my shin. And again, the big idea here is that if I go here like this, once I hit here, as long as my shin down, just so, because I know people are gonna comment, there's no threat of the omoplata here, I'm fully through. You can see here, my shoulder is now connected to the chest, so there's no possible way for them to lasso here on this, right? Even if they push on my shoulders to try to get me away, I'm so tight here, it's easy to slide through. This is a really easy setup to hit. If I do this knee cut, for example, and I try to come here and I'm like this, and so you see all this distance, if they're flexible enough, they can loop that over, right? So by moving around and seeing a quick opening and you close this all the way quick, you're gonna be able to cover that. So the idea is I'm just blocking the feet, and when I have a quick opening, I close that space. Another excellent way to set up the knee cut, so again, I'm trying to deny the feet, so I can control the ankles or the pants, and I enter, and I trap one foot in between. By trapping this in between and kind of keeping my palm on the ankle, she can't really get it free and she's trapped. I focus on isolating this one. If I get them centered or slightly turned this way, I have a nice HQ position I can attack from. But this time, instead of hitting with the shoulder, I'm gonna focus on hitting with my hip in the center of their sternum. And again, as long as I connect to the chest, there's no way for their foot to get in between my chest and their chest. So I'm gonna be here like this. Even if she had my ankle, I can do this. If she has no ankle, it doesn't matter. I'm here like this. I'm gonna shoot an underhook. I posture and I shoot my hip in here. So what you wanna see here, you can come around this way a little bit. Right up here. Keep going. Good, good. So the idea here is once my hip hits, I'm pinning her sternum with my hip, right? I can pin, of course, with the shoulder, but sometimes that angle's hard to get. When I get here like this, I have so much weight on them. If she tries to turn into me, I'm pinning with the hip. If she tries to lasso her outside leg over, my body is so far over, it's in front of her leg. So it's like no matter if my body is here, she can never lasso through this because my whole body is in the way of it, right? So if I'm here, there's a possibility it can come over, right? But whenever I'm up here like this, right? Here, I'm all the way in way of the leg, so there's no way it can come over. She'd have to come all the way over here, and it can even go to the floor, and I can finish the pass. Another excellent knee cut setup you can do is, again, I can use the ankles or the pant legs. I control the ankles, and I'm gonna step in, and I kind of shoot both legs here like this. What this does, it makes it really hard for her to get her feet back out. So she's kind of trapped in this position. From here, I can, depending on how she responds, I could step around and go for a Toreando. But very often when they try to get this out, they open that up a little bit and I can switch back in here and connect the hip or the shoulder and finish. But it locks their legs out of position. The problem is sometimes if I'm here and I go for the lapel first or I try to do this stuff first, they immediately lasso. By controlling the feet first, she cannot get the feet in, she's out of position. And then when I see that opening, you see I already switched and see I've already closed this gap to come in and finish the pass. So now we're going to discuss using this for stack passes. So it's a very similar concept to setting up the knee cut or the Toreando. You're denying the feet, but now your opponent are going to keep their feet up a bit higher. But again, by focusing on the positioning of the feet, you can press them into stacks, which you can turn into diving back takes, guard passes. So there's a few different ways to do this. I've done videos before on just grabbing under the ankles and pushing overhead, and that's a very easy, natural one to do. From here, I can pin the shin and drag into leg drags and stuff like that. But one I like to do a lot more recently is I control this pant leg and I'm here, and when I feel this foot is in the bicep and it's a little bit sticky to get rid of, I'm gonna kind of drop under and I pull it to the ceiling like this. You see, now I'm pulling straight up. So she wants to get her foot back in between us, but it's stuck to the ceiling and I just elevate it. From here, I wanna make sure I don't go in and get triangled or armbarred. So I stay on the ankle, I could be here, here, even the pant leg. I just stay back. Now, as she tries to get her guard back, it's very, very difficult. And I can pull through here and eventually I come through, and I even like to step over the head here sometimes so that she tries to lasso this leg over, I'm already in the way. You see, I'm using everything, my legs, my elbows, my shins, to block this leg out of position. As this tries to come in, you see she's blocked out, right? If I was here, it might come in. So you gotta learn to intuitively do this stuff, right? I can be here like this, I pull up here. Even sometimes, say she lassos this over, I could even catch here. You see, now I block both feet out. So she tries to get the feet in, and now I'm circling around, and again, I'm winning that battle, pressing, digging in, and finishing. So the reverse leg drag and the drop pass are two other incredibly powerful ways to use this. And it's also super shocking on your opponent when you do these because they're a bit less common. And also when you hit them, they're pretty much impossible to recompose from. So looking at the reverse leg drag first, what I often do here is I just suddenly push their legs forward. I'm gonna step my leg out to the side. At the same time, I'm gonna clear this leg. But the big trick here is if I try to land chest to chest, often they can turn in and fight. It's just a hard angle to get my chest because I'm so close already. So what I do instead is I'm gonna try to hit with my hip on their chest like we did for the second version of the knee cut. So I'm here, I create this gap, and now as I clear this, I land with my hip here. And again, I can control their whole upper body with my hips. So as she turns towards me, you see my hip is pinning. This makes it really hard for them to fight, and I can sit on them. You can use this to switch up the mount. You can just control here, come around, and finish. Now looking at this with the drop pass, the idea here is their legs are a little bit more open. So I'm gonna grab the pant leg, and now I'm just gonna shoot this past me. If they try to break the sleeve grip, often they do this themselves. And what I do is I drop chest to chest immediately. In this case, it's easier to hit the chest angle than connect with the hip, and I drop here. Once I drop the chest, it's easy to pin their shoulder blades with my chest. And now, as long as their shoulder blades can't come up, it's very hard for them to get movement. I can just lightly crossface here, keep the chest pressure down, I split the legs, switch, and again, I always keep their shoulder blades pinned, just using my chest in this case. Now we're gonna talk about applying this concept versus an opponent who's sitting up already. A lot of times when we focus on passing, we think of our opponent on the back because ultimately that's where you're going to have them to pass the guard. But understanding how to attack your opponent when they're sitting up, or at least get them to their back, is part of the battle as well. So the first way we're gonna use this is very simple. It's just pinning the leg. So if we're here grip fighting and they let me catch this, you can't always get it, but sometimes I'm using my hands, their hands are up high. I catch this and I get a lapel. What I'm doing is I'm pinning the foot to the floor because now when she falls back, it'll be hard to get that back up. So usually I'll start to go this way, and as she falls back, she brings this other leg up here like this, right? But see, this is already pinned. So now I can jump over to this side because that leg is out of position. Another extremely powerful way to use this is the idea of pulling on the lapel. So when your opponent is sitting up, when their feet are already on the floor, but when they fall back, usually their feet are gonna come up. So by doing things like grabbing a lapel or an over the back grip, if I pull her really tight, it's actually really hard to lift her feet off the floor because she's stuck on the floor. And if she falls back here, she's going to fall back anyway. Yeah, she's going to make it and expose herself to a pass because what happens is the feet get stuck to the floor and they get out of position. So there's really easy ways to do this is I can be here like this, right? And then I can close that space with my head and pull on the lapel a bunch. This makes it really hard for them to get their feet out of play. And often they'll just give you a pass when you come in here. So if she tries to fall back, you see I'm already pulling into positions like this. And there's a lot of different ways you can use this. You could use this to jump to the back as well. I could be here like this and grab over the back and pull forward and try to snap them down and come around to the back. But again, the main concept is you're getting the feet out of the way. It's just that when they're sitting up, instead of dealing with the feet, which sometimes can expose you to an arm drag or some other threat, you quickly snap them forward and their feet get stuck.
A few closing thoughts on this principle that I think is important to understand. I did not in this video go in depth on all the specifics of the different types of grips your opponent can make on you. Because there's so many different grips, having a bit more of a systemized approach for dealing with each one is a useful way to go about it. But the same principles at play I've talked about in this video of denying the feet and closing the chest to chest space is still going to be at the bedrock of every guard pass that you do, but you'll need to develop and understand niche situations based upon the different controls that someone can put you in. So be sure to leave a comment and let me know which particular controls are giving you the hardest time, and I can do an in-depth breakdown on those as well. And as always, if you guys like the content, like, share, subscribe. Thanks a lot.